Hey, Global Village. Okay, I'm feeling very upset and emotional right now, so I'm going to try and do my best to just remain as calm and as coherent as I possibly can. But try to cut me a little bit of slack here if I sort of drift off a little bit on a tangent while I try to talk about this. So I woke up this morning to Al Jazeera News, as I always do, because the reality is that channel is a big upgrade from the national and local radio stations we have here in New Zealand. But that said, since the conflict in Iran has kicked off, it has become quite an intolerable channel to listen to. And I think it is very demonstrative of the schism that these Middle East countries, most especially the ones that have laid themselves prostrate to American imperialism and Zionist Israel, now find themselves in. And yeah, I believe Al Jazeera is a microcosm of that very reality, that internal conflict. Because on the one hand, they will quite honestly and openly discuss the reality of what America has just done in launching their so-called preemptive war, which is demonstrably illegal from the point of view that they did not seek congressional approval. Trump just jumped in and did it. But that said, the problem with Al Jazeera is that they then pivot and provide some of the most nonsense Western propaganda that, it just defies common sense. For example, they talk about Iran's ability to enrich their fissile material to weapons grade, so that as if they have the ability to construct a nuclear weapon anytime soon. This is nonsense. They would probably be at least 10 years away from being able to construct a legitimate nuclear weapon. Likewise, they talk about their potential ability to create intercontinental ballistic missiles, which again is just nonsense. Professional and credible analysts claim that again they would probably be 10 years away from producing such a weapon, and even if they could, such a weapon would lack the necessary payload for it to be able to do any significant damage to any American asset. And that assumes that it didn't get taken out long before it ever managed to arrive at its destination. It's just bullshit. Yet they continue to legitimize these talking points without any real or any pushback at all to challenge the rationale, the actual coherence of these arguments. So it just demonstrates that they are talking out of both sides of their face, and they do it constantly. And it seriously compromises the excellent and good work they have done with regards to publicizing the plight of the Palestinian people when no other radio station or mainstream news agency is willing to do so. They continue to do that, and they should be credited for doing it. But again, they are caught between two worlds, because the reality is countries like Qatar have sold their soul to Western imperialism, and so they continue to act as a mouthpiece for the bullshit narrative that has been forced down our throats on a daily basis by the likes of CNN, BBC, the Western world leaders, despite the fact they know it is bullshit, and then they will implicitly provide a counter-narrative, but they never bring them together to demonstrate their own hypocrisy or ever try to investigate what the actual truth is. So it's this weird Frankenstein newscast that no one can really make any coherent sense out of. Now look, I still think they are better than the alternative, but they are not doing a good job with what's happening in the conflict with Iran, and in my opinion seem to be biased towards the Western imperialist narrative rather than actually demonstrating the honest truth of the naked aggression of both Israel and America. Now, the other thing I want to do here is just signal boost a truly fantastic interview with Professor Mohammad Marandi, which I listened to last night. And primarily the point I want to make here is I just want to relitigate a channel called Predictive History, which in my last video I made about them. I was highly critical of the channel. And I just want to point out that in a previous video I highlighted a concern whereby Professor Zhang characterized the Iranian state as being religious fanatics who wanted nothing more than an end times war with the West. And this is a decades-long stereotype that is so out of date that it's absolutely outrageous that someone who claims himself to be a professor and educator of young minds could offer such a lazy and uninformed opinion. And this video, unlike him, has a characterization of Ayatollah Khomeini that by someone who actually knows what the fuck they're talking about, someone who has a much more intimate and close exposure to who the Ayatollah was and what type of person he was. Was he a devout religious man? Of course he was. Was he a religious fanatic who wanted war with the West at the cost of potentially millions of lives? Of course he wasn't. And this narrative is just a bold-faced lie. And I invite you to have a listen to this interview. There are parts where the connection, the internet connection is poor and his speech becomes unintelligible. But for the most part, the conversation is fully coherent and can be listened to. And it is so worth listening to, especially if you have been indoctrinated with what we've been told Ayatollah Khomeini is, because he is not that guy. He's something else entirely. Anyway, Bendy out.